And we're back. Did you miss us? No, we didn't really. Were you gone? We're back. Today, I'm going to talk about a very interesting line of integrated amplifiers. Well, they make other products as well, but that I think I have read about them before, just never really paid any attention until Richard, our erstwhile friend and wonderful distributor, brought a few pieces over for us to check out. He always does this. He'll just bring boxes at the end of the day and just, hey, here, play with this. And Mike will know what I'm talking about. And then doesn't really tell us very much. And then they'll just sit in the boxes until one day I'll go, what are these boxes? And we'll open it and plug it in. And, almost invariably, Richard has really good taste. They sound fabulous. And the other thing about Richard is that he probably comes from the same school as I do. He's always looking for high value. So I really, really respect whenever he brings us these kinds of toys to play with. This is a company called Heed Audio. They are based in Budapest, Hungary, founded in 1995, so basically 30 years old. They've been doing kind of OEM products with companies way back, and then since then they've started to make their own products. And this particular one is called the Elixir. It's a half-size unit. Those of you who are old enough, you may remember the Mission integrated amps, and then the Cyrus, and then later on Musical Fidelity came out with half-size units as well. Rega, the Brio, that kind of size. Very unassuming. If you look at it, I think it's like 8 pounds or 8 kilograms. Very light, very small. If you look at it, you won't think very much of it. And so that was how I was. I looked at this thing, I'm going, and then Richard tells me it's 50 watts per channel into 8 ohms and 65 into 4 ohms. And it's like real power. This is not some nonsense that somebody dreams up. It's RMS. And more interestingly enough, it has a technology that is not new in the sense that it was, I want to say invented back in the 50s, but never really took hold, something called transcap, which is basically to put a capacitor at the output stage just before the speakers. And the idea there is that it acts like a battery, like a reservoir. So as you're playing music, the battery is constantly being charged as it's being discharged, and so it adds more dimension and dynamics to the speakers. At least that's how I understand the technology. So we're going to talk about this. It also has a Class A headphone amplifier, and it's quite cool looking. We've got the current version, but the cosmetics are going to be changed. Mike will show you the current version and then a rendering of what the factory is going to change it to. It's called the Elixir, $17.50 US or $19.99 Canadian. 4 RCA inputs, 1 moving magnet input, and a pre-out, so you can hook up to a bigger power amplifier if you wanted to. I should also mention, as I said earlier, Heed Audio also makes a number of other series. The Elixir is, I think, the most affordable. Then they've got a bunch of other ones. They also make DACs. They make speakers as well. But I think the Canadian distributor is only bringing in the integrated amplifiers at this point. The system that I used. So we've had this now for, I want to say a month, Mike, what do you think? But a month or so. And it's really only in the last couple of days or so that I started to really listen to it seriously. Up until then, we've been playing it back in background, but also I inherited, air quotes, thousands of records recently. I actually bought it from a gentleman I know. And, excuse me, I've been busy cleaning, vacuuming the records and so on. And each time I see a record I wanted to keep, I would put it on the Heed Audio to listen to it and evaluate. And so I was able to get a good idea of what it sounds like and hear what the phono stage is like. So in terms of the system, I've heard it, the integrated amp driving a bunch of different speakers. For example, right now we have a pair of B&W 802 Diamonds, the first version, in for consignment. We also heard it playing, I guess a couple of weeks ago, the Focus SE, and that was fun. This tiny little thing driving these massive speakers, and it pounded like crazy. And then for the actual evaluation, I hooked it up to the MoFi Source Point 888s. And in terms of the sources, it was the Clear Audio Performance DC with the Virtuoso V2 cartridge, moving magnet. Eversolo DMP A6 Master Generation 2. Mike is laughing because it's insane. Who came up with this name? The A8, which is the model above it, and then the DCS Lena DAC with the clock. I mentioned the speakers, and then cables are all Nordos. Anyway, so that's the system. All right. So let me talk about the sound. Right off the bat, the moment that you start listening, you will notice that it sounds quite warm. It has this beautiful, warm, golden glow about it. It's rich. It's tonally very rich. It's very enjoyable. Um, I want to keep saying tones. Tones are so beautiful. Voices, guitars, pianos, they've got this beautiful tone. And I wrote down my notes. It's like listening to a good tube amplifier. I made a note here. Conrad Johnson, Cayenne. That's what it sounds like to me. Um, uh, Highly musical, very enjoyable. First impressions, that's what I heard. And then I started breaking it down. Bass. It's powerful, it's dynamic, it's quite tight and quite detailed. It's not the tightest bass I've heard in a similar kind of category, although it costs more. The Hagel, for example, costs more, but the Hagel's bass is tighter. It's a bit more detailed. Um, so that's the bass. In the mid-range, now that is the star. I don't know any integrated amplifier anywhere near its price range. Until you get to like the Macintosh and the Accuphase, where the mid-range has got this beautiful tone. And even then, I would say that this might even be even richer sounding um, in terms of the tone. Orchestra has a warmth that is just like a glow. It's wonderful, especially for those of you who enjoy really good single-ended triodes and so on. You might be surprised at how much of this sounds kind of like that. It's very forgiving of poor recordings. Now, it doesn't mean it's not transparent. We'll get to that. But it doesn't have like a lens that sort of sharpens the focus on leading edges where the sharpness and sibilance and harshness is focused on. It's not. It's like you open up the aperture and you get this big. So I wrote down my notes. It's like you don't notice the forest. You see the trees. You don't notice the trees, you see the forest. It has this beautiful ability to let you sit back and enjoy and not worry about all the little things that us audiophiles like to do. When you want to, it's there. It's just that it encourages you. In fact, it relaxes you so much that you can just start enjoying. And that's the other thing. For those of you who are Lin and Name fans, the pace and rhythm is wonderful. Very good macro dynamics, almost as good micro, although the macro is better than the micro. So the little tiny jumps are not quite as good as the big jumps, which is shocking considering this little thing is like 50 watts into 8 ohms and 65 into 4 ohms. Soundstage. So the Oh, wait, let me talk about the highs first. Highs are very smooth. It is not as extended or as airy in terms of, in comparison with other products. I wouldn't say it's rolled off. It just seems like it. It just doesn't have that kind of sparkly, airy sound. And then, of course, when I listen to it with the MoFi, which is in a way already a little bit on the soft side, it's perhaps not the best match in the high frequencies. But when I listened to the B&Ws, it was wonderful. B&W with the diamond tweeter, which can get a bit hot. None of that whatsoever. When you listen to the legacy audio Focus SEs, again, no harshness whatsoever with their version of the AMT tweeter. So the highs are there, just not the most airy, not the most perhaps detailed, but very sweet. Okay, now we're talking about soundstage. Soundstage is very good. Slightly wider than the speakers on recordings that are very good. It'll go a little bit wider, but the depth is what I really loved. Most of us will not have huge rooms. So let's say your room is typically 12 feet wide or so. The soundstage width is typically relatively limited, roughly to the speakers or maybe slightly wider. But the depth is something that you might be able to get more of. And in this case, I was able to get very good layering of depth. And the front stage was done in such a way so it's a little bit on the intimate side. So when you're listening to Holly Cole, for example, she's in the room. She's recorded hot, so she's in the room. But at no point did I find that she was harsh. I've been recently on a kick. Elton John, male vocals, Billy Joel's biography documentary is on HBO recently, so I've been watching it and really enjoying it. And so I'm a big fan. So let me start going through his albums in historical order, and it's fascinating to hear how the quality of the productions vary. Some recordings are very good, and some are quite terrible. But all through, despite the fact that you could hear the variances of qualities, the it was totally enjoyable. If you're a Joel fan like I am, you're gonna love what this does. So with the soundstage again, coming back to the depth, I was able to hear the layering of the depth on recordings that have that. So a real thumbs up, especially for this price range. Um, Imaging, 3D, and quite holographic. I mentioned with Holly Cole, for example, with Elton John, that sense of the person being right in the center was wonderful, very engaging and very exciting to listen to. Uh, the other thing is that I've mentioned this in the past reviews. As an example, Hegel has one property which I find very fascinating, and I liken it to if you've been to plays and you've got the stage and you've got one or two actors and the rest of the stage is turned off in terms of light, and so all you have is this focus on that singer or on the actor. But that's what Hegel does very well. It can do spotlets on the specific instruments and the band really, really well. It's like all these different spotlights. With this, it's all like it's more like the lights are all on, and so you get the whole picture. You don't quite get the spotlights. You don't get the same kind of image detail as the Hegel. But on the other side of it, it's like the AccuFace. I get that whole picture that I really also enjoy. I can't tell you which I like better, to be honest. The Hegel is more dramatic. There's no doubt. Somebody who's never heard the Hegel before, if you switch over to the Hegel, they'll go, wow. And then they're trying to struggle to put words to what they're hearing, the effect. This is more, quote unquote, traditional, but nonetheless, just as enjoyable in a different way. Um, and then I mentioned already, it veers more towards the intimate than laid back. I mentioned the micro and macro dynamics. Oh, I should also point out, in a throwaway phrase I mentioned, it's shocking how this little thing can do the macro dynamics. Now, let me talk about that. I was playing this thing at pretty loud levels. I came in pretty early this morning and yesterday, and I was cranking it. And at no point does this thing get blazing hot. It gets warm. Um, but it was very composed. It was able to play some crazy bass music that I was playing. It was able to play some big classical pieces, and at no point did I feel like it was hitting its stops. I never felt that it was distorting. It just did what I asked it to do and did it very, very comfortably. Now, finally, let's talk about transparency. I mentioned earlier that the highs appear to be a little bit soft, and that also it seems to be quite forgiving of recordings. Now, generally speaking, when that happens, it usually means that the electronics or the system is not very transparent. In other words, things kind of sound um, the same. So good sounds good, bad sounds okay. You don't get the kind of big differences. That's not true. The amplifier is in fact quite transparent. I mentioned I was using a number of different sources. So I was easily able to hear the difference between the Eversolo A6 Gen 2 to the A8 to the DCS. And in fact, case in point, some of you may or may not know, but with DCS, if you have the master clock, you can switch out the master clock while you're playing music. It takes about 2 or 3 seconds to be turned off, and then the music will resume. And you can hear for yourself the before and after. And so I decided to do that rather than switch back and forth within the Ever Solo and so on. I decided I'm just going to play the music through the DCS and then turn off the clock. 2 seconds later, I'll hear the sound and then turn it back on and see what happens. And it was very easily obvious that with the clock, everything sounded so nice and smooth and with the richness and the timbre and so on. And the moment I switched off the clock it almost seemed like things got a bit etched. Not that it was bright or harsh, it just you heard more that it was not as refined. And the soundstage width collapsed, the soundstage depth collapsed. The intimacy got forward. It wasn't intimate anymore. It was just more forward and in my face. Now, I hasten to say, it's not the DCS that is doing that. It's just that in comparison with the master clock, it just sounds like that. And if you didn't know any better, that's, that you think it's fine. It's just that when you put on the clock, it's just, the level of refinement is so much better. So it's very transparent in its abilities. And yet it has this, I don't know what it is. It might be similar to like what a Macintosh does. Very transparent as well. It's just that it's got this level of sweetness and coating that allows you to enjoy average and even bad recordings. So anyway, so summary for what is it? $1,750 US or basically under $2,000 Canadian. This is one heck of an overachiever. This integrated amp is beautifully made. It is quite lovely to use. It has a very good phono stage. I didn't mention that. The phono stage is, I want to say, every bit, if not better than any project phono stage that you can buy for $500 or $600. That's how good it is. I didn't try the headphones. I understand it's supposed to be very good. I can't think of any reason why somebody wouldn't like it unless you're looking for something that is borders on the highly transparent, highly detailed side, and you only listen to the very best recordings and you don't necessarily listen to average recordings, because for the combination of the music lover and the audiophile, I think this is hard to beat. I really do. And short of buying a tube integrated amp that will necessitate having to change tubes at some point, maybe deal with noise, all that kind of stuff, I can't think of a better recommendation. So highly recommended for this money. And you may have a hard time finding this in your area. If you're watching from Europe, it'll be a lot easier. From what I understand, Heed is very well distributed and available in Europe. In North America, not so much. But seek it out. If you're looking for, as I mentioned, if you're a music lover and you want something that will reproduce music and not just audiophile stuff, I think you'll really, really like this. I for one, very grateful that we have it. At some point, we will continue to review and listen to the other models in this range as well, from this company as well. All right, well, thanks for watching this. And if you've heard it, by the way, I'd love to see your comments. So put your comments below and we'll see you again next time. Take care. Bye-bye.